Hey guys, another great edition of Quarantine with Coaches. Today I got a great guest. He is a high school head coach here in Wisconsin. His name is Justin Gumm. Coach Gumm, how you doing?
Good. How are you today? Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And Coach Gumm just got hired at Hamilton. Before that, I'll let you do a little bit of talking, but you're at a couple of different stops in the state. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey to Hamilton?
Yeah. So I guess long story short, I married a breadwinner a little bit. My wife's a pediatrician, and so I've had the benefit of being able to follow her around. But at the same time, it's been a little bit of taking my journey in different places. So I'm originally from Quincy, Illinois. Grew up in Quincy, went to Quincy High School, played at Culver Stockton College, small private school in Missouri. And then I got my first coaching job at Truman State University, and coached there for a year and a half, and then got a job back at my alma mater with even more responsibility. And then from there, my wife got into med school. And so I took the high school route and kind of followed her. So got a job in Champaign, Illinois, right outside of Champaign as an offensive coordinator. And she was at University of Illinois, Chicago at Champaign for her med school. And then that was only a one-year program. So then we moved to Rockford, Illinois, which was her last 3 years of her program, and took an offensive coordinator job there at Jefferson High School in Rockford. And I know Rockford gets a bad rap, but I genuinely enjoyed, both of us really enjoyed our time there. And so took a head coaching job after there for a couple years at South Beloit High School. I was 25 years old, I think. Small school right in the northern tip of the state, right on the other side of the border of Wisconsin, and was fortunate enough to do some really cool things there. And then that kind of led me. She, at that point, took a residency job at University of Wisconsin. And so I followed her there and took a job as a defensive coordinator on the dark side. And so really made me a better coach, and had an awesome experience there working for Steve Arado at Madison East High School. And so that was fun. And then Kettle Moraine came open, and one of the more prestigious jobs, probably just because of the state and where the conference it was in, being in the Classic A. I probably wouldn't have got the job had it not opened as late as it did. I think it opened like in June, and I took the job there shortly after. But a really good buddy of mine, David Braun, was an alum there, and Dave's now the DC at North Dakota State. But him and I had worked together at previous stops, and so he kind of gave me a little bit of the down low on what was going on there, and thought it was a chance to kind of turn the program around a little bit. And so I took that job, and fortunate to work for Mike Fink there, phenomenal athletic director and good admin. And we did some really, really, good stuff there, and some of the program changes that we made, and some of the programs that we were able to beat that hadn't been done in a really long time. And then after that, I was there for 3.5 years, and we had our first child. And so I took a step back and took an OC job at Grafton, thinking that was going to be better from a family fit. OC job in a Phi Ed strength conditioning teaching job. And so long story short, I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and very, very great situation there from a football and teaching standpoint. Nothing bad to say. I mean, everything was awesome. But there was a piece of me that was still missing. And when the Hamilton job came open, it's about 10 minutes from my house. And it was something I'd always had my eye on, because I felt like, it was a very, very successful program. And I thought it had a lot of potential and a lot of upside. And the growth of the district was extremely attractive. And so my calling, was to get back and being a head coach again. And so when that job came open, I kind of went all in on it. I guess the long story short, I kind of am where I am today because of that situation. So.
Right. You had tremendous success at Kettle Moraine. I just, from being in the area, I know that. But I mean, the highest winning percentage, I think, of any head football coach there, and ended a long time playoff drought. And then, you just mentioned you take a step back at Grafton last year and become a coordinator. What'd you learn that year as a coordinator, now going back into that head coaching role, that you're going to take with you to Hamilton?
I had always been a coordinator even when I was a head coach, and so that was something that came pretty natural for me. But I think the one thing that I probably learned more than anything is it allowed me to kind of put some more things in perspective and look at things from an assistant standpoint. In terms of delegation, and that's something I'd always valued, but just from an assistant job and how having value, you know what I mean, and feeling empowered and having a role on staff is important. And I was super fortunate enough to work for Jim Norris, who's actually a Whitewater alum, and he kind of basically said, "Hey, take it and run with it." And so from that perspective, like I have a lot of value in that, and I tried to do that with my assistants. But I think I even look at it more now as like how much I really appreciated, kind of having complete say of a lot of that stuff, and really even how we structured practice and things like that as well. And so I try to bring that, as well. I remember going back, Marcus McClin, who's also a Whitewater alum, was my DC at Kettle Moraine for 2 years. And I can remember something that was always, he said to me was, I appreciated the fact that, like, yes, you stepped on my toes when it needed to be, but for the most part, 95% of the time, like, it was my show and I didn't feel like, you were over my shoulder. So, going back that 1 year and being on that side, I think it really allowed me to dig deep and appreciate that part of it.
Sure. And you got hired at Hamilton, I think late January, early February, right? Right before this quarantine hit. How have you been going about now building relationships with your players during this time?
Yeah, and I guess to touch on that, the timing wise, I feel super fortunate that I was able to meet a lot of our kids before all this happened, and we were able to build a lot of that rapport. We were able to have our team meeting, meet a lot of the families and parents, and build that at least base relationship. We even got our Unity Council picked and did our off-season draft and all that stuff. So, when everything happened, we basically just took everything we were doing and then put it to a virtual platform. So we use Team Builder for all of our workouts. Obviously, we can't make them mandatory or anything like that, but everything's still able to do virtually. We still meet as a staff every Tuesday night via Zoom. And so, that's nice to still be able to kind of develop and put our plan in place as if, everything's going to start on time in August and adjust some things obviously along the way with all the things that are going on. But it's also allowed us to, like, all of our position coaches meet with their position group once a week. And we're not allowed to talk anything football, but it's nice just to talk life and reflect on how things are going and see how their grades are doing and see if they need any help and really instill our culture a little bit as well. I meet with our Unity Council every Wednesday. And so that's something that we've continuously done is develop our leadership and develop mental training and really instill our culture and what it really means and take a deep dive into it. And then because we have off-season teams, our coaches also touch base with their off-season teams twice a week. And so they're touching base with kids that are, freshmen all the way through seniors across multiple position groups that are in their off-season teams. And so they get to talk about, what they're doing for community service and how their grades are doing and all that type of stuff. So we feel like it's been really pretty good. Our kids are starting to get a little bit anxious, obviously, but for the most part, we feel like they're really doing a really good job, not only off the field and with community service, but with classroom stuff and even a little bit of stuff we're able to do virtually, and then reflect, on how workouts are going and things like that. So it's been pretty beneficial.
And the reason I reached out to you to join me on this show is I know that the guys that I've worked with now that you produce, they come from this very strong football culture. They're advanced compared to their peers because of that culture. And I wanted you to just sort of talk about Chop the Wood. I know that's one of your mantras. Can you just tell us a little bit about what Chop the Wood means and really what does that look like when it's in action?
Yeah, so I appreciate you saying that. And obviously we've been fortunate to have some guys come and play for you and not just good players, but really elite young men. And so I think, maybe our program had a part in that, but they were elite young men before that even happened, And so to their credit, though, they were huge in buying into our process. And on that note, like, I think that's the bottom line is Chop the Wood is a very process-driven culture. CHOP itself is an acronym. It stands for Consistent Habits of Precision. And so, we don't talk about winning state championships or winning Friday nights. I mean, obviously some of that stuff comes up a lot of times, but we talk about what we can control today, whether it be on the field, whether it be off the field in the classroom, whether it be at home. Everything that you do is a consistent habit of precision and being precise and being accurate and being detail oriented with everything that you do. And then, on a side note too, like all of our kids, they have an axe that they carry around, whether it be on their keychain or in their wallet. They have to have it on them at all times. And that's kind of their reminder that we're all carrying an axe together. And we all want to be swinging at that same tree at the same time, to be able to make those figurative trees in our life fall, right? And so if we have 130 guys swinging at 130 different spots on that tree at 130 different times, those trees aren't going to fall. And so something that we're very intentional about is doing those things together and sharpen our axe every single day, so that we're taking care of that business and we're all on the same page. And then, how we kind of reflect on that daily, weekly, year round. So our culture is instilled, 12 months out of the year. Obviously, we're only able to do so much outside of the season, especially with all the multi-sport guys and things like that. But our Unity Council meets, and we instill our culture year round, and then they're expected to kind of instill it with their guys. But during the season, during fall camp, we really dig deep in terms of what that looks like. So every single day, we talk about not only our culture, but our pillars within our program and what that looks like. And we've done book studies in the past as well. But then to the other note is we have a weekly theme every week too, and that ties directly into our culture. So we talk about it daily, we talk about it weekly, and then we talk about it a lot of times in practice and then post-practice. So we try to use and verbalize our terminology all the time so that it is ingrained in their heads. I heard PJ Fleck one time say brainwash. I think it's sometimes that's a negative annotation, but I think when you're instilling a certain type of positive energy and certain type of culture, I think it sometimes does become that in a good way. And so, I think too, part of it going back to the beginning is I'm a big, I know this is one of the questions we were going to talk about anyways, but I'm a big PJ Fleck fan. And I know that's a tough thing to talk about here in the state of Wisconsin. But the reason I say that is a lot of people think it's fluff and it's a front and all that stuff. But we were fortunate 3 years in a row that we visited Minnesota staff and Western Michigan staff. And so we try to take a spring ball trip every single year, if not two. We spent 3 springs in a row just on our culture and going to different programs and studying that. So I was fortunate, we were fortunate to dive deep and sit for a whole weekend on what their culture really means and then see it implemented into a practice when they're at Western Michigan and then they're at Minnesota. So, I talk about people that want to second guess some of that stuff. I don't think you're at Minnesota with, I don't know if they have any 5 stars, and you beat a team like Auburn with 25 5 stars. And the same thing goes to Western Michigan. You don't go 13-0 at a program like that without your culture being pretty special. And until you're there in it, sometimes you don't realize that.
Awesome. Hey, before I let you go, do a little rapid fire thing here. You ready for that?
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, what you may have already answered this, but the biggest book that has impacted you?
Probably Chop Wood, Carry Water. And it's funny because we came up with our mantra before that book came out, but then when it came out, I was like, well, I'd be dumb not to read it. And we actually used it 2 different places, 2 different years as a book study, and super easy read and a ton of really easy life lessons within that book. So I love it.
I'm glad you said that because it's literally on my desk right now. If it was a little bit closer, I'd grab it, but it's the next book. I'm actually starting it this afternoon, so I'm excited.
And Pound the Stone, his follow-up to it, I think, too, our kids said that it was maybe a little bit more related to a high school or college kid because it was an actual story, where Chop Wood, Carry Water was more about a samurai warrior, and it was more of a proverb. But I think both have a ton of value.
What's been your go-to quarantine meal?
I've been a big pasta kick, with all the things going on. I think we're sitting around maybe a little bit more than normal. So that might not be the best thing in the world, but it's also, gave me that boost every single day to attack the day. So I'm a big chicken Parmesan guy, and I know that's a little bit a lot of a meal, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, what's been your show that you've been binging through this time? Or I guess at this point it's been 6 to 8 weeks, so you may have gotten multiple shows.
To be honest, I don't watch a lot of TV, and I can guiltily say, I don't know if that's a word, but my wife has got me into The Bachelor, whether I want to watch it or not. And so on Monday nights, that's something that I have to at least spend some time with her and digging deep into the old Bachelor Bachelorette series. But other than that, I haven't really dug in deep into any like Netflix shows or anything like that. So.
I hope you allow me to keep that piece.
Yeah, no shame. It's real, right? That's real.
That's awesome. Hey, a final question here. As a head coach now, I guess this is your second tenure trip around. Who are you patterning yourself after, your style wise, as head coach? And I know you sort of touched on it already.
Yeah, I think that, we talked a little bit about, the Fleck influence, but somebody I've been followed a lot that I don't think a lot of people have really jumped on board yet, but Will Healy is one of my favorite college coaches right now. And I think he's done some really, really unique things. And I always like young guys too, that kind of get into the profession and maybe ahead of their time and are willing to think outside the box. He's one of my favorites. And then, just in our state, Steve Jones and I have built a good relationship over the last 3 to 4 years. And he believes in a lot of the same things I do and vice versa. So I look up to him a ton in the way he does things and how he values relationships and culture more than anything.
Coach Gumm, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on Quarantine with Coaches.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's an honor to be a part of this deal, especially with all the names you've had on. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.